Hi there, and welcome to another episode of Conversations with Heaven on Earth. I'm Jo, and once again, we're blessed to have the beautiful Melissa with us. Hi, Melissa. How are you doing today?
Hi, everybody. I'm always good when we do these videos. I'm so excited to get to spend this time with all of you and for us to grow on this incredible journey that is Conversations with Heaven on Earth. If you've been watching all these videos along with us from the beginning, hasn't it just been phenomenal to get to this point where we are right now? So I feel so blessed. I have so much gratitude for the loved ones, well, I guess they're somebody's loved ones, right? For the spirits that have come through and shared all these incredible messages for us and what the afterlife is like and how we can really get the most of our best life. So I'm so excited with whoever it is that we're going to chat with today. So Joanne, over to you.
Cool. Yes, so much. I'm super excited. Today, I would like us to connect with Dolores Cannon, who on Wikipedia, her title is author, but she is so much more than just an author. So excited.
I know I have a few friends that rave on about Dolores Cannon. I personally have never read or heard any of the things that she does. Are you able to show me a visual of her if you have one handy? That would be great. Oh, isn't she just a cutie pie? Fabulous. So, well, let me connect with her. I had a funny feeling we were going to do her actually because I know she's been quite highly requested. So I feel like her energy's kind of already been connecting with me today. Nice. So I'm going to tune in. You guys just chill out and sit back, relax, enjoy the show, and see what happens, right?
Okay, awesome. Thank you, Melissa. Yes, she's definitely come into my awareness quite a lot recently as well, and I have been emerging myself. There's so much online about her, from her, of her. So I have so many notes. I hope that the rustling of the paper is not distracting. I'll try and be as quiet as possible, but there is so much to go through today.
Okay. I feel like we're ready. It's interesting because, like I said, I've already felt like her energy was merging, so that's why I'm like, it's really cool. I love when like, because I have no idea, as you guys know, unless it's a poll, I have no idea who we do. But I guess the psychic in me kind of was already in tune with this, right? So yeah, I just wanted to make sure that because I've already felt her energy already, I just wanted to make sure that we are really fully connected. And that might be something that you guys experience. You know, sometimes we will have that deep connection to things, and so just trust those gut instincts, just trust those feelings that you experience as well. And the afterlife, as we know, is a non-tangible thing. So when you have these experiences, and it might be with your loved ones, you might feel your loved ones like around, just trust that feeling and build on that connection. So I think this is a good learning opportunity to say that, you know, we can have access, all of us, to those in the afterlife or the dimension of the afterlife. So Dolores is a really, how can I explain it to you? She comes in and she looks me like right in the eyes, and it's like, wow, let's just take a moment for our two souls to really connect and merge together. And it's really intense, and I feel like she's just wanting to look through me to make sure that I'm going to do her justice, and to make sure that I'm going to pass on whatever it is that she needs to say to all of us, truthfully, right? So she's just kind of like, it's kind of like she's like examining my soul, and I'm like, it's like I'm kind of naked and she's kind of like looking at all the parts of me, and I'm like, you're kind of invading my space, you know. It's like, but it's fine. I'll take one for the team. Yeah, that good? So she smiles, and kind of like the image that I get inside my mind that she kind of puts there is, how can I explain it? I see like a whole bunch of different doors, and it's kind of like, which door are we going to open today? And I'm like, I don't know, how about this one? Door C, let's go in the middle. And it's like, I feel with her, if we can understand the complexity, I feel like she was someone who came here to be a really big spiritual teacher. And I actually feel like with her, she compiled a whole heap of wisdom and a whole heap of experiences from all of her lives. I think we've seen this quite a lot with a lot of people that we've talked to, and kind of bringing it into the lifetime of Dolores. And I feel like she makes me laugh, because I do feel with her, it's kind of like, where do we start? Is the kind of feeling that I kind of get. So I'm like, well, Dorsey will do. And she just wants us to know the backstory before we do start of her. And she talks about being multidimensional, and she talks about how, as a little girl and growing up, she kind of always felt like there was, like she was connected to something. She talks about maybe not necessarily understanding it as a little girl what this was, but she talks about always kind of feeling like she was living in a multidimensional space rather than what we might feel we're just kind of living this life. I feel like she's saying that she kind of was so tuned in on some level that she was going to bring a variety of knowledge, of perspectives, and she was only going to be able to do that if she was kind of living in this awareness of the multidimensional, knowing that she is a physical being, but she's also a soul being that kind of is here to have this experience. So I do feel like she actually plucked in a lot of knowledge as well from the other possible beings that we can be. And I feel like she came in a time where humanity wasn't necessarily as receptive to what she had to say. And she talks about how her work, that now that she has passed, will now become, what's the word I want to use? Will now become, I feel like a lot of them have said this, now that they've passed, their work will now become like what it was supposed to become. So she says she's really grateful for those that gave her work power, that gave her work awareness, and she's really grateful to those who have suggested for her to come and speak with us. And she really is, she reminds me of Anne Wigmore a little bit, which was the well-being guru we spoke to. And it's kind of like she appreciates all the platforms that she gets to be able to speak on. And I feel like, isn't that amazing that even in the afterlife, she still has so much gratitude for being able to speak to all of us. So I'm really excited because I've never personally experienced her. She doesn't hold that against me. But I feel like she just really wants us to understand that, unlike what many of you might feel like you're living just this life as who you are, it's like she had a really good understanding and grasp that she was just more than that. And she talks about how just her childhood was really uncomfortable. This was really uncomfortable. It was like she kind of felt, in a sense, that she couldn't talk to people about how she felt. And I feel as an adult, this is why she became such a huge advocate. She talks about bringing in different perspectives. I don't know what that's about. Like I said, I don't really know much about her, but that's what she talks about, is we need to change how we view our human lives. So does that make sense, Joe?
It does, absolutely. So I feel like I should just get into it. How important was Dolores Cannon's own past lives to the work that she did in her life as Dolores Cannon?
Yeah, well, I feel this is what as well she was kind of touching on, right? She talked about how she was like, her life is a collection of all the kind of like the past lives. And from what I get with her is she shows me a lot of lives where she was ostracized. So how can I put the word ostracized simplified, where she was kind of like an outcast in a way, or she was persecuted for a certain way of living her life. So she was, a lot of her lives she spent ostracized. And she talks about how that was a really important quality to bring into this lifetime as Dolores, because she says, I had to be so strong and never deterring in my belief when everyone else wanted me to. So she says, that is a skill set that you adapt through many, many, many lifetimes. She talks about how she had to be so confident and so sure in who she was and what she was given, and really trust that. I feel such a deep connection to spirit, and really just knowing that they've got my back and really trusting that. And she goes, you don't get that just coming into life just like that. You learn that through lifetimes and lifetimes. And so she really gives me being quite a powerful woman in a lot of these lives as well. And I feel coming as a woman was quite crucial for her this lifetime as well. She talked about how she came on the precipice. Well, that's not a word I use at all. So she talks about coming on the precipice of the rise of the feminine, and how that was really important that she came as a woman this lifetime. So I don't necessarily get a full visual of what her life, her past lives were, apart from the fact that I get that there were really intense lives where she had to learn those strong human qualities, perseverance, determination, personal belief, authenticity, all those words. Because she says, if you look at any of my work, or if you listen to any of my work, she says, I never deterred from my message from the get-go. It was always the same. It was always like I stood by that. I knew, she says, from a little girl, I knew who I was. Like I never tried to fit in, because I learned in all these lifetimes that fitting in did not serve me. So maybe there's a little message in that for all of us, right? Fitting in might not serve you. So like a lot of them, be you, right? Trust in who you are. So does that help answer your question?
Yes, it does. And then how do the blocks in your past lives, how much do they actually affect our current lives?
So are you asking her in terms of her own personal blocks, or like as a general question?
It's general.
So she would like us to deconstruct the word blocks, because she goes, there are lessons that we experience that then we have to, she says, re-experience in a sense, right? So when you talk about blocks, are you talking about the words fears, or are you talking about things that you've like the lessons that you didn't quite fulfill? Like she just wants us to deconstruct what we mean by the word blocks, because I feel like she's such a deep spiritual teacher. She just wants to make sure that she's giving us the right wisdom.
Absolutely. So I can simplify it to question, does our past lives affect our current lives?
That's a good question, right? So she says, it depends on your soul's mission at the time, right? So what she says for her is her past lives had a great impact on who she was as a person here in her life as Dolores. And she goes, it really depends on the lessons. She talks about how everything's kind of like, she can simplify it. She talks about levels, right? As a soul, we go through like different levels that we get to learn, right? And she goes, it kind of depends if you've like ticked that level and you can now go on to like the next experience. So she talks about how it just kind of depends on like where you're at. But she does make me feel, and this is a belief that I have as well, that the soul does have its own like memory and its own imprint. So I mean, I love past lives as Melissa. Like I'm absolutely fascinated by them. And I feel like with her, she really wants us to kind of understand potentially the mechanics that kind of go like in the spirit world. Like, how is a soul? I think like we talked to Freddie Mercury about this a little bit, where he talked about how, you know, we reevaluate what we've learned and everything like that. Yeah. And so I feel like Dolores, what she's wanting us to understand is there's just a little bit more to that, in the sense that when we decide to incarnate into a physical body, and we've kind of gone through the, you know, what's my soul going to experience and all of that, it's like having another life review, but of all your lives, in a sense, which is really cool. I don't think I've ever heard that before. So it's kind of like before you incarnate your physical body, I guess that's why we have nearly 10 months gestation period, maybe, who knows, right? But it's like the soul gets to kind of, if you just imagine, I'm just going to use like my DVD collection. It's like you get to, your lives are all like these DVDs collection, and you can kind of look at them, and kind of that's where we pluck in. She says that's where we get the parts from our past lives as to what we're going to experience in terms of healing or growing from that. So I hope that's a good enough analogy to kind of make you guys understand that, you know, once we've kind of chosen we're going to come into this life and we've got a body that's assigned to us, then we kind of get to relook at all our past lives once again and choose what we're going to kind of pluck in from that's going to help us this lifetime.
Very cool. Very cool. Okay. There's so much to talk to her about. It's just hard to even fathom where we even go from there. I appreciate that. Does she want to does she want to talk to us about time and define time for us?
Sure, I'll ask her. She talks about time as not being linear. So for what I understand, you know, I guess as human beings, time goes from one end to the other. So let's call that a linear, right? And she talks about how time is not linear at all. Okay. And from what I get of her, is time is actually restrictive. Time, when we look at a timeline or when we look at things in a time frame, she says it's actually really restrictive. And as human beings, we place so much importance on this thing called time, right? You know, I don't have enough time is something that she heard a lot of people say. And it's like, you actually have all the time that you need. And she talks about how, because of this multi-dimensional experience that she was able to feel. It's like, it's kind of like, how do I explain it in a sense that there is, time is like, I know you can't, if you're listening, you can't see my hand gestures, but it's like time is just, it's overlapping, it's underlapping, it's going vertical, it's going horizontal. It's like, I don't believe in time. I don't believe in time. That's kind of how I want to explain it. And she says, if you get caught up in this aspect of time, you're really biting yourself in, I know you wouldn't use that word, Dolores, but I'm going to use it. You're kind of biting yourself in the butt, really, because you're only focusing on one aspect of what your human experience might entail. And that's what I feel like, you're really not allowing yourself to fully be immersed in this thing called life, really. So yeah, that's what I feel. It's like, it's so like the universe has no time. The universe has no time frame per se. And she talks about how ancient civilizations were really good with that. Ancient civilizations of humanity were really good at understanding that there is this flow, that there is a cycle. She talks about how we should look at life more as a cycle rather than as time. And so she talks about how these ancient civilizations, and she goes like, I want to even go past like Greek, and because that's for me a civilization, I kind of stop there, Greek and Egyptian time. So we want to go like Babylonians and, like past all of that. And she talks about how those, the human calendar didn't come in till much later on, like the clocks and time didn't come in. And so she says that's when humanity, it's kind of like, I want to say that's kind of when humanity started dumbing down a little bit, like, sorry to say, but that's like kind of like, then that's when everybody started kind of being put in like boxes and started kind of being put in like, I just want to use like restrictions. That's the only way I can explain that. So she says we must look to ancient civilizations and how they lived their lives, and really moving away from the concept of time. And just like, she goes, Melissa, you don't wear a watch. I'm like, Dolores, I would love to say that the reason I don't wear a watch is because I'm not conscious of time, but it's because I got this tattoo here, and that's where my watch used to go. And I'm like, and then I didn't want to like hide my tattoo. So that's the reason I don't wear a watch, Dolores. Like, I would love to say it's because I'm really evolved in that sense, but I'm really not. But she goes, having like a watch, having like the watch and constantly looking at the time, she goes, it's kind of like this precipice that you are putting on yourself of failure. Isn't that interesting? Like, I'm like, but Dolores, like, I do look at my phone all the time and check the time, and like, so how do we move past that, if that's something that you want to explore?
Cool. Yes, I think I've heard her say that time is everything in history is happening all at the same time. There is no such thing as everything's happening at the same time. Everything in history is happening still right now. Okay, off track. Did she meet Nostradamus when she in the afterlife? Has she met him yet?
Well, that's an interesting question, isn't it? Well, let's ask. So this is what she goes to me. She goes, yes, but not as you would know him as not I was saying Notre Dame. No, how do you say it again? Because now I've lost it. Notre Dame.
We all know. It's fine.
Yeah, you all know what I mean. Because now I'm like Notre Dame, of like in France. she goes that this, as you guys might know him, he is like a master being. And so that's how she got to experience him, as the master being that he is, and how important he was in really helping those who are here on a service of really helping humanity's evolvement, like to evolve. And so she talks about how he has gone to that status. And so when you get to meet him, you're not meeting him as the person he was when he was alive. You are meeting him as a master being. Does that make sense?
How much did she actually help him, Nostradamus? Because I felt like the work that they did together, there was a question of whether, was she actually feeding him the information to write the books? And it was this beautiful cycle. Does she want to talk about that a bit more?
So from what I get, right, is more in the sense that they have a connection of being like a parent and child connection in past lives together. So there is quite an intertwine between them in a sense. So I don't feel like she helped him or he helped her. I feel like it's both of them helping each other. Like, I don't know how else to put that. It feels like their energy, she has a lot of respect for him, or for the being, right? That is Nostradamus. And I don't actually feel like she wants to say, yes, I was influential or not. Like, I really don't feel I want to say that. I feel like it's like we're intertwined.
Okay. With any of the work that she did do when she was talking to people in the past, did she actually affect their lives? I have heard her say that a few times, and I'm wondering if that was like big significant changes or effects, or was it just small little things?
She goes, it really just depended on the person.
Yeah.
It really just depends. Like, I feel a lot of the people that she connected with, and this is why she talks about the multidimensional experience, right, is they had a huge significance in being part of like her soul family and her soul's mission and everything like that. So she's one of those people that, in a sense, doesn't want to take credit for things. Like, she's really humble. She's really, really humble. And I feel like for her, she doesn't want to ever come across as the person that the reason for things. Like, you know, like, I really feel she's really down to earth in the sense that she was just part of the process.
Absolutely. Her work is amazing, and she definitely does not come from an ego base. You just get that sense of it. I mean, she could totally be entitled to, because she worked so incredibly hard. She has got so many accolades. I mean, you know, if anyone was deserving to have an ego, it would be her. But because she's just that amazingly grounded, beautiful person, she doesn't come across like that. So
yeah, I really want, hopefully, that's coming across, because she's such a honey. I know I say this about a lot of people, but she really is. I don't feel we've interviewed anyone that's not lovely, but she really is somebody that kind of says that, you know, we all have our part to play. We all are part of it all. We're all kind of significant in our own right. And I think this is really important, that she talks about how no life is insignificant in a sense. We're all part of this greater process that is the universe, right? So yeah, she's really, I don't feel she even, I mean, she must have had experiences with her ego at some point, right? I mean, you can't not have that as a human experience, but I really feel like Joanne said, she's just someone who has just such a beautiful understanding of life and what it is to be part of a collective. And I hope that it's something that we can all eventually experience ourselves, right? Anyway, back to your question.
Yes, I think the world would be amazing if everyone took on Dolores's. She wasn't just like a foundation figure. She was, I can't even think of the word right now, a pioneer, but like on the true sense, like if everyone started doing work like her in different fields, whew, that gets me very excited. Okay, the next question I have to ask is, there's so much. Does she want to talk to us about the new Earth and the old Earth, and has the Earth reincarnated yet?
It's a lot of questions.
Sorry.
No, that's all right. I feel like I think like I say this time and time again, it's such a different experience for myself compared to you guys watching all of this. And I just feel like with her, like I'm home. There's this kind of feeling of, just to put myself to the side for a second, because, I've grown up just knowing that I was different, all that kind of stuff. And it's like, I see a mirror of that, and it's really comforting for myself to know that, everything that we experience when we feel like an outcast, and I know that you guys can all resonate with that at some point. And it's like, I feel like with Dolores, like I'm home. It's such a wonderful feeling to feel that. And so I think sometimes when I get into that state, I just get a little bit spacey, and it's like, oh, I'm kind of like, yeah, it's challenging when you are, and I'm sure, Dolores, you experience that as well, when you are someone who is enlightened, or when you know that there is more out there, to be in a world where people don't understand that, it's quite challenging. So when you are able to be in a space when people get your language and people understand that, it's just, for me, it just makes me go, that feeling of just like warm marshmallows and a hot chocolate, that's how I feel. So that's how I just feel with her. It's like, yeah, she just makes me feel really comfortable. She makes me feel like it's okay to be me in this world. It's okay to do the work that I do, and that it's okay to realize how important the work that I do is. And I get really frustrated, like, I'm not going to lie, I get really frustrated sometimes. And she's like, it's okay, Melissa, you have to realize that you just got to do the work, and it will be what's the word I want to use? It will be accepted, or it will be used at the time that it is needed. But she goes, just keep doing the work. And I think this is something that I really need to hear for myself. And I'm sure you guys at some point in whatever it is that you do need to realize that, sometimes we come up with these great ideas and we know that they're somehow coming from outside of us. Yeah, I know you guys will feel me on that. And then you kind of put it out there to the world, and the world just doesn't really get what you're doing or understand it. And she goes, like, if she got caught up in that, and that just, I guess, shows, that I'm still human in that ego space sometimes. And she goes, if she got caught up in that, she wouldn't have been able to really make an impact in the world. And she goes, it was never about who's going to read this or who's going to hear it. It was always about, I just do the work and then the work will go to whoever it needs to go to. So I really feel like I love her in the sense of just giving myself the reassurance that, you know, we've just got to keep showing up, right? We've just got to keep showing up. So anyway, I just wanted to put that as a side note. I know it's not to do with your new earth or old earth or earth reincarnation, which we'll talk about in a second, but
I just want to add that I think you're the same age as Dolores was when she started working on these projects as well. She did 17 books, and the first book that was published took 9 years to get to print. So she's definitely, 9 years. I mean, she clearly never gave up on the belief that her work is just so everything. So, she's a powerhouse, and definitely if we have any role models, Dolores Cannon is my number one. So, you know, that's just me saying my 2 cents. So anyway.
Yeah, and I think, you know, it's very valid because I know, because, you know, I read for so many people, right? I know we all have frustrations, and I think what we can take from Dolores, and I promise I will get to answering the new earth, old earth thing in a second, right? But we have to also look at these opportunities, and I know that I always look to myself as being real and honest as I can be with what I'm going through at the time. And I love her for reminding us that when we are of service, you just show up and you just do it, and then let everything else kind of happen. So, you know, maybe I didn't have enough lives where I had perseverance, Dolores. Maybe I needed to experience more of that in my past lives, right? Anyway, so let's talk about this
Okay, we can just
cycle thing.
We'll just
back on track. But I just wanted you guys to know why I was just in that moment where Dolores and I were just having this one-on-one kind of, she was speaking to my soul, and I just thought I'd share what we were talking about.
Cool. So you can just
what's that?
If the earth has the earth reincarnated yet?
So from what I get from her on that sense is it's in progression.
Okay.
Right? I hope that makes sense. She talks about how, you know, a lot of us felt in 2012, you know, she talks about the Mayan calendar and all of that kind of stuff, and how we felt we were on this new kind of thing. And she goes, that's when things started to like reset a little bit. And she talks about how the coming of the time, even though she says she doesn't necessarily believe in time, right? But to help us, it's like, as we start to engage that 10-year from 2012, so as we merge into 2022, that would be 10 years, right? That's when we're going to feel that reincarnation state. Does that make sense?
Yes, and what you're doing with your hands, which you don't know, is the earth is literally going to, it's like copy and paste each other, and there's going to be 2 earths, but one's in one dimension and one's in the other dimension, which is what we call 5D, I think. But she may want to clarify that. Does she want to talk about 5D and 5G, and where the heck did 5A go? What is, no, I'm joking, there is no 5A, but what is 5? What are they? Does she want to tell us?
So cute. She talks to me about, and I feel Stephen Hawking. It would be interesting to have a conversation with both of them together. I don't know if I'm that good in being able to do that, but we can always give it a go, right?
Next season.
You know, she's like, Melissa, just trust in yourself. I'm like, I know, but it's a big ask, right? And I think that having a conversation with both of them at the same time would be really cool. From what I get, and this comes back to the multi-dimensional that she was talking about, and how she talks about how there are so many complexities. Earth is a physical energy. As human beings, you see Earth as a physical energy, but there's so much that kind of also flows through that, that is other energies, and that's what she talks about. I look at that as 5D being like different dimensions encompassed within the Earth core, and I really feel like there is other existences, let's use that because that's totally a word, right, that are actually living on Earth that will surface, in terms of that. So and we'll start to see that. She talks about how the Earth's core will begin to, I want to say, like, we're going to start to see things coming up. A lot of discoveries of different kinds of worlds and all that kind of stuff are going to start to come along. And that's what I feel is all about the 5. It's very, I look at it as, from what I understand, as multidimensional, and being able to access all of that. But she makes me feel like maybe they haven't like physically surfaced, right? But there are other occupancies living life on Earth, just kind of like what we are doing. They're not necessarily in a physical sense, but they are on that. And when there's going to, from what I get, is there is going to be a really big shake-up that's going to geographically change the world, and this is going to come from like the core.
So she does have maps of the new look of each country. Can she confirm that they are accurate? Now she's in the afterlife, and
she talks about how they're pretty close.
Yeah, I would imagine so. Yeah, I don't believe for a second that anything that she has said isn't accurate. But I want to confirm that with her.
But she also says that it's not just going to all happen in like one day.
Because that would be horrific. But
yeah. So it's like, it's going to be a process of it happening. But she does talk, it's like the Earth is rumbling. The Earth is like, I don't know how else to explain it, but it's like there's going to be, it's like I want to imagine like a massive volcano from like the core, even though it's not. But do you know what I mean? It's like there's going to be like this, it's like a massive vibrational shift that's going to be felt on such a earthly physical level. But that's kind of like when there's the I'm getting really hot, like the energy is like, I'm like, please don't make me experience what's going to happen to the Earth's core.
Lava.
I'm like, I don't know if I'm quite ready to go into spirit quite just yet.
Your pants are on fire.
I know, I'm like, but that's kind of what I feel is that this is, and I'm like, well, is this why we have global warming? What is global warming? Is it like a big hoax? Or she just talks about how it's all part of, we're going to see the heightened of what we might call global warming, but she goes, the Earth's been through that already, so don't panic. Yeah. She says we've seen this happen already, but that's when she talks about, like, look at the dinosaurs, it's like there was an extinction, the Earth shifted, the Earth changed, and this is what we're going to feel, but this time it's going to be a lot more powerful. It's going to be through the Earth's core, and we're going to also see, because of that and the shift in the atmospheric temperature, we're also going to be able to see these other existences that occupy Earth.
Because I guess
now I want to go, do we need to be like afraid of these occupancies like Dolores, or are we like all good? It's like,
and
I'm like,
and she would say that you only need to fear if you believe that you should fear something, there will be a reason for it. So if you are afraid of anything, there is no reason for fear. So you create fear is what I'm trying
to. We create fear. Fear is a human-made concept, right? But yeah, so from what I get is that because our Earth is, as we know, like we only have to look at our weather, right? It's like it's getting hotter and hotter and hotter, and the reason for that is because this needs to happen for like the Earth's core. Like, it's, how can I explain it so that it makes sense to you guys? Is right now there is something happening on Earth that is a vibrational shift, and in order for that shift to then be conceptualized on a physical level, is like, this is happening. This is what really global warming, as we might call it. The Earth, there is no global warming. This is just part of from what I get, right? I'm not a scientist. From what I get from Dolores is global warming is just get your head around it. It's not real in the sense that how people are putting it. Yes, the Earth's temperature is rising, things are melting, things are changing, but it's actually part of the cycle. It's part of the cycle. Earth's done this many times, and it's because there's a vibrational, energetic shift happening. And at one point, the Earth needed to get colder. At one point, the Earth needed to get hotter. And right now, the Earth needs to get hotter in order for this to happen. So does that make sense? Because I'm not a scientist, but hopefully I've explained that from her well enough.
That's cool, because the Earth was never created for humans. It was only created for animals. Is that right? Not that that's got anything to do with it, but that's, from what I've heard from Dolores, that's what the Earth is all about, supposedly.
Well, I feel like from what I get, Earth was already kind of like there, and it was such a rich planet. Earth is such a rich planet in a lot of its resources. So I feel like I just, side note, want to ask her, because we are destroying a lot of its resources. And she goes, the Earth replenishes. The Earth replenishes.
Yeah. Did she get to talk to someone in past lives about I don't think she ever, she would have got to cavemen. I don't know. So hard. There's so much. Her work is so everything. Like, she is just, there's so much.
Well, I feel that's why she was like, pick a door.
I know.
Which door do you want?
All 17 of the books that she's published are all just, some of them are volumes of the same subject matter, but everything, like she, even if you didn't believe in certain things, just letting people know, and she can confirm it, that when we have our past lives, we must live in every country, we must be every gender, we must be rich and poor, and we must live and must be every religion. Does she want to explain that a bit better than I have just?
She goes, you did a pretty good job on that.
Sweet, cool, tick. She must know that for this video, this is maybe the first taster of Dolores Cannon for our people. So I just want her to be a smorgasbord of information for everyone. Can I just confirm something?
She does say, people are also able to go and look at my work.
Oh, absolutely.
Just a little plug, right? She's so cute.
Absolutely. I am so excited to get my hands on her books, and I have been listening to her in my kitchen. My children now call her Nana. she's everywhere in our family. And I just thought I would add here that she said if you have too many lives in one gender, when you come back, you get not confused, but you. She explains how people are gay, and that if you have had lots of lives as a woman, that can actually be in her discovery, what gay people are, and how they've been created. Sorry, I don't even know if I've made it, but
that's okay.
So
that's it. It's interesting.
So many gems. Like, no one I've ever experienced has told me so much knowledge, and I'm excited. Oh, did she meet God's parents?
I kind of feel like I want to go like, I want to throw the curveball out there and go like, which God? You know, like.
Absolutely. Yeah. So she has said our God has parents, and then they have got gods, and then those gods have gods, and it's mind-blowingly lovely and just resonates so true to me. I feel like I'm getting honest information. So when she was doing her research on her books, and she found that the books that were published were false information from what she was getting, how annoying would that have been for her? Like, that would have been frustrating, right?
But I feel this is what she says. She goes back to the beginning where she had all those experiences in her past lives, right? And that trusting and being so sure of what she was getting, and going with that. So I feel for anybody who is ever doubting themselves, and even though there might be things that contradict, right? Just if it's coming from that place of deep knowing, follow it.
Yeah. Does she want to talk about the deep sea scrolls? Because I haven't really heard much about that, and I want to understand a little bit more about what they actually are.
Sure. I get that they are contracts. From what I get is that they are contracts. How can I explain it? I'm like, now I have a vision of like Aquaman movie. That's how my mind works. But you know, I feel like she talks about how, okay, biblical times might have the 10 commandments. She's like, there's something like that, but of a universal, how can I put it, like a universal collective agreement. Does that make sense?
Okay. Is this something that was done? Is this something from like the planetary union? Is that?
That's, I don't know what a planetary union is, so I'm just going to go with trusting that, right? I'm going to go with it. But I feel like it's a now I kind of imagine, like, because this is how my brain works. You guys have seen like the Green Lanterns, right? And there's like the group of like the Green Lanterns from all around the different galaxies kind of thing. I feel like this is like a universal agreement from lots of different species and energies, and that's what I feel that this is. Hopefully you guys can sit with that. It's kind of like commandments, but universal laws, or universal, I think Stephen Hawking talked about that, like, you know, the laws of the universe. It's kind of like the agreements of the universe.
With all of those movies that you're talking about, is it Marvel?
Maybe, I don't know.
Whoever. Is this information and the ideas from those similar to Star Trek, where they were actually channeled and then a writer wrote into them? Does she want to speak about how we've been subtly informed of the actual real bigger truths, but in spoon sizes?
Yeah, she actually says, you know, he's up there, you can talk to one of them. So I think, is it Stan Lee? Is it Stan Lee? Maybe we could have a chat with him. I know he's like the Avengers and all that kind of stuff, but she goes, you know, that could be a fun conversation from them. But she goes, from what I get with what you've just said, is that now that we have this mass production of film and everything like that, even though it might seem like it is something so far-fetched and so how can I put it, someone's imagination, from what I get is that it's all seed planting from when people are really truly ready to wake up.
Cool. I feel like all my questions are just so random. So the next question is, can she help me and everyone else understand if your belief system is something is bad for you, then it will be bad for you. And we all believe, and we all have heard right now that gluten's not good for us. Can we eat the gluten even though it's not good for us, but believe that it's good for us and it will cancel it out? What is the greater, how do we work out that cycle? Can we take something that's bad for us and with true positive intent make it good? Sorry, am I over?
No, she says, there are definitely things that are poisons for humans. For the human body. She definitely believes that there are, from what I get, and I think someone else talked about that, and I can't remember for the life of me who that is. It might have been Anne Wigmore, maybe, or Stephen Irwin, one of them. She talks about how, she really understands what you're trying to say about the intent, and she goes, yes, to some extent, but she does say that there are still things that are poisons to the human body. Just like she says there are poisons to plants and animals, right? So some things on the earth aren't for human body consumption, even though human beings are consuming that. Potentially it might be for the other beings that occupy the planet that we might not be able to necessarily see right now. Maybe this is part of their food source or their things, but for the human body, she talks about, she goes, okay, if you want to have a burger and believe that a burger is going to be good for you, then she goes, that's a good example. But she does talk about how, I'm like, what about chocolate, Dolores? Because I am a chocolate-aholic, but my waistline does not believe that I should have a chocolate. So, she goes, well, that's an example of how we can set an intent, right? But she does make me feel like there are things on the planet that are sources that aren't for human consumption, and we're consuming them, and it's like a poison to us. So does that answer? Does that help?
Can she list anything? I mean, I feel like it could be wheat, heavy meats. There's so much. What did Anne Wigmore said? We need to consume live, raw and alive foods. And we didn't get to ask Anne Wigmore, so we'll ask Dolores Cannon. Drinking water with crystals, does that make it alive?
She says you're very cute. She talks about it depending on the element of the crystal. So I think from that, I believe it depends on where the crystal is sourced, how much it's been taken from its raw state. She goes, if you had a raw crystal that you found yourself, that would be a really good aspect. But she talks a lot of the crystals that we do have, a lot of their magic in a sense is removed because of the processes that it has to go through. So crystals, from what I get, it's better for them to be in their raw state.
Yeah.
Rather than the pretty polished ones, right, that we all like.
The dyed ones, I mean, come on, they're pretty enough as it is. Anyway, sorry, that's my Oh my goodness, my list. What is sacred geometry?
She talks, it's a language.
Oh.
It's a language. So from what I get, it's a language from a species that's not too far from our own galaxy. And it feels like that's another way of explaining time.
Yeah.
In a sense. So it's a very complex language. She says some people have begun to decode it. Because she says they're not too far from, it kind of follows systematically the human kind of alphabet. She talks about how Egyptians and actually how a lot of, what do you call them? Oriental cultures are potentially very influenced from this species per se, but she talks about, yeah, it's a language. It's a very, she says, and it's still kind of new. Like if she kind of explains, like, you know, human beings being really new. So, the geometry is still a reasonably new form of language in the universe. And she talks about how it's actually quite precious. It's really precious, and it's really, she just goes, it's actually really well done. It's a really well done, created form of language. So she talks about how we'll see more and more of an influence of that here on Earth. So yeah, she says it's fun to have a play with.
Will do. Is it still true that the only thing that is real is love?
Well, she goes, it depends on how you want to explain that. She goes, the only true experience is love, right? And she talks about how there are many things that are true. She says what we're talking about is true, what other people, you know, many things are true. She goes, if you're talking about experience, then love is the one true experience.
It actually makes me want to cry. It's amazing. So then every other heartache and struggle is not even real. It's all made up. Ooh, good.
Well, it's part of the journey, she says. It's all part of the journey to experience that true love, isn't it? So I'm going to say, Joanne, that maybe we'll do like one more question with her. Because I feel like she's still here, but I feel like in terms of a mediumship energy, like it's going to start dropping soon. So make it a goodie. Make it a good question.
My goodness. Do we need to be afraid of aliens?
Do we need to what?
Be afraid of aliens. I know we don't. She can tell us.
They walk among us already, right?
Yeah, I know. But it's just, she always says it good.
From what I get with her is she doesn't like the word alien.
Oh, yes, sorry. I do know that even. Sorry, pardon.
That's okay. She's just saying I don't like that word because it talks about something that is foreign and she goes, you're foreign, you know, like human beings are a foreign, we're an alien form ourselves, right? So she talks about how, yes, there are ones to fear, definitely. She talks about how there are definitely other beings out there that would create harm to humans as a species, definitely. But she also kind of makes me feel like there's a really good group of people up there also looking after us in a sense. So she says it's not yours. She says it's not your, it's like being afraid of that isn't something that we need to worry, you know, like it's not in our, how does she put it? It's not in our awareness to be something that we need to think about fearing.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. So, yeah, so she really would like to, I mean, she says, you know, in some ways when we look at movies and, you know, books and things like that, she goes, a lot of this has been dramatized, you know, in a sense. But she does give me, though, that, and I think this is valid, I think someone else talked about, you know, there always is an opposite where there's good, there has to be not so good, right? So, yeah, but she talks about how, you know, we don't necessarily need to worry. I'm like, is Mega, you know, what's his name? Is Optimus Prime going to come and look after us, right? I'm a huge Transformers geek. I love him and Bumblebee, right? But it's like, you know, that's kind of, in a sense, if we kind of look at all these things, right, where whatever kind of alien life force, as we call it, there's always somebody that comes to help. Yeah. And that's what she says is like, we don't need to actually worry.
Cool. Sorry, one more thing, just because it is kind of on that. Can she talk about walk-ins?
About what? Walk-ins?
Walk-ins. So
like walk.
So when there's a near-death experience and one soul leaves the body and another soul comes in.
I walk in.
Yeah.
All right. Well, what she shows me is not necessarily like another soul coming in, but another version of that person's soul coming in.
Oh.
So the best way to explain it is, let's say I have a near-death experience, right? You're not going to come into my body as the soul. It would be like a different version of myself, of my soul being coming into that.
Okay.
That simplified it? Like it? That's quite easy to understand, right?
Yeah. I'm just sort of wondering why one has to leave and the other one has to come. Is it just like an upgrade?
Well, she goes, upgrade might be a good way to experience it. But she talks about how, and I think someone talked about this, and I can't remember who, sometimes like that experience is needed in the other parts of ourselves. So, yeah, I think that was Anthony Bourdain, right? And so that's kind of like what this is.
Okay. Cool. Okay, well, maybe we'll do another part 2 of her down the track. And I've just...
Stephen would be cool.
Yeah. Wow, I super love Dolores Cannon. I want that to be known for sure. And I will be listening to her because she has, she did weekly radio, hour-long statements, and now they've been released on YouTube. And so each week I get to hear a new delicious interview from her, and biggest fan ever. So thank you, Dolores. I didn't even feel like we asked her about her life review, or what is she even doing in the afterlife? Like,
I don't think we need to right now. I feel like she's, we've talked to a lot of people in terms of what they're doing and stuff like that. I feel like what she's shared with us is great, right? So I'm going to let her go. Not because I don't want to know those things, but because she's beautiful, and I just feel like a warm hug from her, as she's just gorgeous, absolutely beautiful. So I too will look at some of her work, and thank you so much for choosing her for this episode.
Well, thank you for your amazing skills to be able to connect with her. It's just been, I've been so excited to hear from her. So thank you so much, my beautiful friend Melissa. Thank you so much, Dolores Cannon. You are everything to me. And thank you so much for listening. And I hope that your answers and curiosity about her as well were answered as the best we could. So thank you so much, everyone. Bye.
Bye, everybody. And just remember to just let go of time, let go of anything that is stopping you from doing life your way, right? So in true Dolores fashion, thank you for listening. Bye, everybody.